Every year since 1970, the average man has lost 1% of his testosterone. 1% doesn't sound like much until you do the math. A man today has roughly half the testosterone of his grandfather at the same age. Half. This isn't about aging. This isn't about genetics. This is a biological collapse happening in real time, and it's accelerating. The question isn't whether this is a crisis. The question is what caused it, and whether we can reverse it before the line hits zero. In 1970, researchers began measuring testosterone levels in men as part of large-scale health studies. The data was consistent across continents. The average testosterone level for a 30-year-old male hovered around 600 nanograms per deciliter. By 2000, that same 30-year-old measured closer to 400. Today, it's approaching 300. This isn't one study. This isn't one country. This is a global phenomenon. Testosterone levels are plummeting across every industrialized nation on Earth. The drop is linear, predictable, and unrelenting. 1% per year. Like clockwork. What makes this even more disturbing is that this isn't a natural decline. When scientists compare men from the same age group across decades, the difference is staggering. A 40-year-old man in 1980 had significantly higher testosterone than a 40-year-old man in 2020. Age isn't the variable. Time is. Something fundamental changed in how we live, and it rewrote our biology. Testosterone isn't just about muscles or libido. It regulates energy, mood, cognitive function, bone density, and metabolic health. It is the primary androgenic hormone, the chemical signal that drives male development and vitality. When it drops, everything drops. Motivation fades. Fat accumulates. Depression creeps in. The body shifts from a state of growth and resilience to a state of conservation and decline. Low testosterone is linked to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and early mortality. This isn't cosmetic. This is existential. The first stage of the collapse begins with something most people touch every single day: plastic. But not just any plastic. Plastics that contain chemicals called phthalates and bisphenol A. These aren't inert materials. They are biologically active. They are hormone mimics, and they are everywhere. Phthalates are used to make plastic flexible. They're in food packaging, water bottles, shower curtains, vinyl flooring, cosmetics, and medical devices. BPA lines the inside of canned foods and coats thermal receipt paper. Every time you handle a receipt, BPA transfers through your skin into your bloodstream. Here's where it gets terrifying. These chemicals are structurally similar to estrogen, the primary female sex hormone. When they enter your body, your cells can't differentiate between real estrogen and synthetic estrogen. Your endocrine system, the network of glands that produce and regulate hormones, treats them as the real thing. The hypothalamus, a region of the brain that controls hormone production, detects what it thinks is high estrogen. In response, it sends signals to reduce testosterone production. The body believes it has too much sex hormone, so it stops making more. The result is suppressed testosterone and elevated estrogen in men. But the damage goes deeper. Phthalates don't just lower testosterone. They interfere with the cells in the testes that produce testosterone, called Leydig cells. Animal studies show that exposure to phthalates causes these cells to malfunction and die. The damage is cumulative. The more you're exposed, the less capable your body becomes of producing testosterone at all. And because these chemicals are fat-soluble, they accumulate in adipose tissue over time. You're not just exposed once. You're storing a chemical reservoir inside your own body that continuously leaks into your bloodstream. The average person is exposed to phthalates and BPA daily. The Centers for Disease Control found metabolites of these chemicals in the urine of over 93% of Americans tested. 93%. There is no control group. There is no unexposed population. We are all marinating in endocrine disruptors, and we have been for 50 years. The timing is not a coincidence. The mass production and widespread use of plastics exploded in the 1960s and 70s. Testosterone began its decline in the exact same window. The second stage of collapse is comfort. The human body is an adaptation machine. For millennia, survival required constant physical exertion. Hunting, farming, building, fighting. Movement was non-negotiable. Testosterone evolved as a response to that demand. Physical activity, especially resistance training and high-intensity exertion, signals the body to produce more testosterone. The body interprets effort as a survival advantage. If you're moving, you're thriving. If you're sedentary, you're not. Modern life has engineered movement out of existence. The average adult in a developed nation spends over 11 hours per day sitting in cars, sitting at desks, sitting on couches. The body interprets this as a signal that effort is no longer required. Testosterone production slows. But it gets worse. Fat tissue, especially visceral fat that accumulates around the abdomen, produces an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. The more body fat you carry, the more testosterone you lose. And lower testosterone makes it harder to build muscle and easier to store fat. It's a death spiral. A man with 20% body fat will have significantly higher testosterone than a man with 30% body fat, even if they are the same age and height. The fat itself is hormonally active. It's not just storage, it's a gland. And it's a gland that turns you into less of a man with every pound you gain. Studies show that men who engage in regular resistance training have testosterone levels 15 to 20% higher than sedentary men of the same age. The body still responds to the ancient signals. Lift heavy things, sprint, climb, fight. Do that, and testosterone rises. Stop doing that, and it crashes. But modern culture has made convenience a virtue. Labour-saving devices are celebrated. Walking is replaced with driving. Stairs are replaced with elevators. Effort is seen as inefficiency. We've built a world that rewards comfort, and comfort is killing us hormonally. The more convenient life becomes, the less biologically viable we are. The third stage of the collapse is in the water. Tap water. Bottled water. The water you drink every day. In the United States and Europe, water treatment plants filter sewage and wastewater, then release it back into rivers and reservoirs that supply drinking water. This recycling process is necessary, but it has an unintended consequence. It doesn't remove synthetic hormones. Millions of women take birth control pills daily. These pills contain ethinyl estradiol, a potent synthetic estrogen. When women urinate, that estrogen enters the sewage system. Water treatment plants are not designed to filter it out. It flows through, gets diluted, and ends up back in the drinking supply. Studies in Europe found measurable concentrations of ethinyl estradiol in tap water. The levels are low, parts per trillion, but hormones are effective at incredibly low doses. Your body responds to nanograms. Chronic exposure, even at trace levels, is enough to disrupt endocrine function. Fish populations downstream from sewage treatment plants show feminization. Male fish develop female characteristics, produce eggs, and have reduced sperm counts. They are living in the same water we're drinking. Then there's atrazine, one of the most widely used herbicides in the world. It's sprayed on corn, sugarcane, and sorghum fields. It runs off into groundwater and contaminates drinking supplies. Research by Tyrone Hayes at UC Berkeley demonstrated that atrazine exposure in frogs caused complete feminization. Male frogs exposed to atrazine developed into functional females, capable of laying eggs. The chemical doesn't just lower testosterone, it chemically castrates. Atrazine is banned in Europe but still heavily used in the United States. It's in the water, it's in the food, and it's in your body. The Environmental Protection Agency sets a legal limit for atrazine in drinking water, but that limit is based on toxicity, not hormonal disruption. The dose that poisons you is much higher than the dose that feminizes you. You're being exposed to levels that won't kill you, but will quietly reprogram your endocrine system over decades. The fourth stage of the collapse is stress, not the acute stress of a predator attack or a life-threatening event. Chronic stress, the unrelenting low-grade anxiety of modern existence, financial pressure, job insecurity, social media comparison, political instability, traffic, noise, the constant bombardment of information and obligation. The body was designed to handle short bursts of stress followed by recovery. It was not designed for decades of unbroken tension. When you experience stress, the hypothalamus releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, which signals the pituitary gland to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, which signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. Its job is to mobilize energy and suppress non-essential functions, and in a crisis, reproduction is non-essential. Cortisol directly inhibits the release of gonadotropin-releasing hormone, the signal that triggers testosterone production. High cortisol equals low testosterone. It's a biochemical trade-off. Survive now, reproduce later. But when stress is chronic, later never comes. Cortisol stays elevated. Testosterone stays suppressed. Studies show that men with high-stress jobs, poor sleep, and financial anxiety have testosterone levels 20 to 30% lower than men with stable, low-stress lives. The body is making a calculation. This environment is hostile. This is not a good time to reproduce. Shut it down. Sleep deprivation amplifies the problem. Testosterone is produced primarily during deep sleep, specifically during REM cycles. The average adult now sleeps less than 7 hours per night. That's down from over 8 hours just 50 years ago. Men who sleep 5 hours or less have testosterone levels 10 to 15% lower than men who sleep 8 hours. The decline happens within a week. 1 week of poor sleep and your testosterone crashes. Modern life is a cortisol factory, and cortisol is a testosterone killer. We've built an economic and social system that requires constant vigilance, constant productivity, and constant connectivity. The body interprets this as a state of emergency, and in an emergency, the first thing to go is your ability to reproduce. So where does the line go? If testosterone drops 1% per year, and we're already down 50% from 1970, what happens in 2050? At the current rate, the average 30-year-old man in 2050 will have testosterone levels below 200 nanograms per deciliter. That's clinically hypogonadal. That's infertility. That's the medical threshold where doctors diagnose testosterone deficiency and recommend hormone replacement therapy. But what happens when an entire generation crosses that threshold? You can't prescribe your way out of a species-wide collapse. Population models already show the consequences. Birth rates are plummeting in every developed nation. South Korea, Japan, Italy, Spain, and Singapore are all below replacement level. The global fertility rate has dropped from 5 children per woman in 1960 to 2.3 today. Demographers predict it will fall below replacement, which is 2.1 by 2050. The infertility crisis isn't theoretical, it's statistical, and testosterone is the biological mechanism driving it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This didn't happen by accident. Every stage of the collapse is a result of choices. We chose convenience over health. We chose plastics because they were cheap and versatile. We chose sedentary lifestyles because we could. We chose to pollute the water because filtering hormones was expensive. We chose an economic model that prioritizes productivity over rest. Each choice made sense in isolation. Together, they built a system that is incompatible with male biology. The good news, if there is any, is that testosterone can recover. Remove the endocrine disruptors. Move your body. Filter your water. Sleep 8 hours. Manage your stress. Men who make these changes see testosterone increase by 20 to 40% within months. The body is resilient. It wants to return to baseline. But individual recovery isn't enough. This is systemic. The entire infrastructure of modern life is designed to lower testosterone. Reversing it requires rejecting the modern script of convenience and consumption. It requires choosing effort, choosing natural materials, choosing rest, choosing a pace of life that allows your biology to function. The alternative is a future where masculinity is chemically extinct, where the average man is functionally infertile by middle age, where hormone replacement becomes a universal necessity just to feel normal. That future is 25 years away. The line is visible. The trajectory is clear. The question is whether we have the will to break it. Subscribe if you want to rewrite your biological script.